Fulk, also known as Fulk the Younger, was the Count of Anjou from 1109 to 1129 and the King of Jerusalem from 1131 to his death. During his reign, the Kingdom of Jerusalem reached its largest territorial extent. Biography. Count of Anjou Fulk was born at Angers, between 1089 and 1092, the son of Count Fulk Ivy of Anjou and Bertrade de Montfort. In 1092, Bertrade deserted her husband and bigamously married King Philip I of France. He became Count of Anjou upon his father's death in 1109. In the next year, he married Ermengarda of Maine, cementing Angevin control over the county of Maine. He was originally an opponent of King Henry I of England and a supporter of King Louis VI of France. But in 1118 or 1119 he had allied with Henry when Henry arranged for his son and heir William Adelin to marry Fulk's daughter Matilda. Fulk went on crusade in 1119 or 1120, and became attached to the Knights Templar. He returned, late in 1121, after which he began to subsidize the Templars, maintaining 2 knights in the Holy Land for a year. Much later, Henry arranged for his daughter Matilda to marry Fulk's son Geoffrey of Anjou, which she did in 1127 or 1128. Crusader and king by 1127, Fulk was preparing to return to Anjou when he received an embassy from King Baldwin II of Jerusalem. Baldwin II had no male heirs but had already designated his daughter Melisenda to succeed him. Baldwin II wanted to safeguard his daughter's inheritance by marrying her to a powerful lord. Fulk was a wealthy crusader, an experienced military commander, and a widower. His experience in the field would prove invaluable in a frontier state always in the grip of war. However, Fulk held out for better terms than mere consort of the Queen. He wanted to be king alongside Melisenda. Baldwin II, reflecting on Fulk's fortune and military exploits, acquiesced. Fulk abdicated his county seat of Anjou to his son Geoffrey and left for Jerusalem, where he married Melisenda on 2 June 1129. Later Baldwin II bolstered Melisenda's position in the kingdom by making her sole guardian of her son by Fulk. Baldwin III, born in 1130. Fulk and Melisenda became joint rulers of Jerusalem in 1131 with Baldwin II's death. From the start, Fulk assumed sole control of the government, excluding Melisenda altogether. He favored fellow countryman from Anjou to the native nobility. The other Crusader states to the north feared that Fulk would attempt to impose the suzerainty of Jerusalem over them, as Baldwin II had done, but as Fulk was far less powerful than his deceased father-in-law, the northern states rejected his authority. Melisenda's sister Alice of Antioch, exiled from the principality by Baldwin II, took control of Antioch once more after the death of her father. She allied with Pons of Tripoli and Jocelyn II of Edessa to prevent Fulk from marching north in 1132. Fulk and Pons fought a brief battle before peace was made and Alice was exiled again. In Jerusalem as well, Fulk was resented by the second generation of Jerusalem Christians who had grown up there since the First Crusade. These natives focused on Melisenda's cousin, the popular Hutu of Lipuiset, Count of Jaffa, who was devotedly loyal to the Queen. Fulk saw Hugh as a rival, and it did not help matters when Hugh's own stepson accused him of disloyalty. In 1134, in order to expose Hugh, Fulk accused him of infidelity with Melisenda. Hugh rebelled in protest. Hugh secured himself to Jaffa, and allied himself with the Muslims of Ascalon. He was able to defeat the army set against him by Fulk, but this situation could not hold. The Patriarch interceded in the conflict, perhaps at the behest of Melisenda. Fulk agreed to peace and Hugh was exiled from the kingdom for 3 years, a lenient sentence. However, an assassination attempt was made against Hugh. Fulk, or his supporters, were commonly believed responsible, though direct proof never surfaced. The scandal was all that was needed for the Queen's party to take over the government in what amounted to a palace coup. Author and historian Bernard Hamilton wrote that the Fulk supporters went in terror of their lives in the palace. Contemporary author and historian William of Tyre wrote of Fulk, "He never attempted to take the initiative, even in trivial matters, without consent." The result was that Melisende held direct and unquestioned control over the government from 1136 onwards. Sometime before 1136, Fulk reconciled with his wife, and a second son, Amalric, was born. Securing the borders. Jerusalem's northern border was of great concern. Fulk had been appointed regent of the Principality of Antioch by Baldwin II. As regent he had Raymond of Poitou marry the infant Constance of Antioch, daughter of Bohemond II, and Alice of Antioch, and niece to Melisende. However, the greatest concern during Fulk's reign was the rise of Artabeg Zenghi of Mosul. In 1137 Fulk was defeated in battle near Bahrain but allied with Mu'in ad-Din, the vizier of Damascus. Damascus was also threatened by Zenghi. Fulk captured the fort of Banias, to the north of Lake Tiberias, and thus secured the northern frontier. Fulk also strengthened the kingdom's southern border. His butler Paganus built the fortress of Kerak to the east of the Dead Sea, and to help give the kingdom access to the Red Sea. Fulk had Blanchgard, Ibelin, and other forts built in the southwest to overpower the Egyptian fortress at Ascalon. This city was a base from which the Egyptian Fatimids launched frequent raids on the Kingdom of Jerusalem, and Fulk sought to neutralize this threat. In 1137 and 1142, Byzantine Emperor John II Comnenus arrived in Syria attempting to impose Byzantine control over the Crusader states. John's intention of making a pilgrimage, accompanied by his impressive army, to Jerusalem alarmed Fulk, who wrote to John pointing out that his kingdom was poor and could not support the passage of a large army. This lukewarm response dissuaded John from carrying through his intention, and he postponed his pilgrimage. John died before he could make good his proposed journey to Jerusalem. Death in 1143, while the king and queen were on holiday in Acre, Fulk was killed in a hunting accident. His horse stumbled, fell, and Fulk's skull was crushed by the saddle, and his brains gushed forth from both ears and nostrils. As William of Tyre describes, he was carried back to Acre, where he lay unconscious for 3 days before he died. He was buried in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Though their marriage started in conflict, Melisende mourned for him privately as well as publicly. Fulk was survived by his son Geoffrey of Anjou by his first wife, and Baldwin III and Amalric I by Melisende. Legacy. Depictions. According to William, Fulk was a ruddy man, like David, faithful and gentle, affable and kind, an experienced warrior full of patience and wisdom in military affairs. His chief fault was an inability to remember names and faces. William of Tyre described Fulk as a capable soldier and able politician, but observed that Fulk did not adequately attend to the defense of the Crusader states to the north. Ibn al-Kalanizi says that he was not sound in his judgment nor was he successful in his administration. The Zengids continued their march on the Crusader states, culminating in the fall of the county of Edessa in 1144, which led to the Second Crusade. Family. In 1110, Fulk married Ermengarda of Maine, the daughter of Elias I of Maine. Their 4 children were: Geoffrey V of Anjou, married in 1123; William Clito, married in 1134; Thierry, Count of Flanders; Matilda d'Anjou, married William Adelin. After his death in the White Ship she became a nun and later abbess of Fontevraud. Elias II of Maine. John III of Maine. His second wife was Melisende, Queen of Jerusalem. Baldwin III of Jerusalem. Amalric I of Jerusalem. Historical fiction. Judith Tarr, Queen of Swords, a forged book published by Tom Doherty LLC, 1997.